Hello and welcome to the Market Review, where we bring you key developments in the financial and capital market as it affects the economy. Today, our conversation will be around achieving a market-wide approach to addressing the rising tide of unclaimed dividends in Nigeria. And my guest is Mr. Ayodeji, MD Optimus by Afrinvest. It's great to have you on the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Before we begin the conversation, let us take you through some of the key stories that occurred last week in the capital market. First story is that the National Bureau of Statistics released Nigeria's headline inflation for March 2022, and it showed that headline inflation increased by 15.92%, while food inflation rose to 17.20%. Also, the Nigeria Exchange Limited launched what has been described as West Africa's first exchange-traded derivatives market. Also from last week, the FMDQ Securities Exchange admitted the Premier Corporation Series 2 7.02 billion naira commercial paper on its platform. That's all some part of the key stories that occurred in the capital market from last week. We go on a break, and when we return, the conversation will continue.
Tune in to Web TV Daily to stay up to date and informed on the financial market, personal finance, and more. We have got you covered with all your favorite TV shows, economy and politics, market review, women's series, millennial talk, Islamic Finance Weekly, The Brief, exclusive interviews, events, and we keep you up to date on all the updates in the financial market with the market opening gong. Watch premium content. Watch Web TV. Same news, different perspective.
Welcome back, and if you're joining us, it is the Market Review, and we're discussing achieving a market-wide approach to reduce the rising tide of unclaimed dividend in Nigeria. My guest is Mr. Ayodeji, MD Optimus by Afrinvest. Now, to our viewers, to set the context, unclaimed dividend are those dividends which have been paid by the company, but they are not taken or claimed by the shareholder. The reason for dividend being not claimed may be ignorance by the shareholder, or may have shifted to another area and therefore missed the dividend check. That's for our viewers who would want to understand what unclaimed dividend is all about. Now, Mr. Ebo, between 2011 and 2021, the value of unclaimed dividend rise from 41 billion naira to 170 billion naira. That's times 4, which shows that it's a huge concern. Now, why is this a huge value in Nigeria, despite the various market interventions that we have seen in the country?
I think the first thing to note is that if we have to look back on how this started, for those that are new to the market, in 2007, 2008, when we had the market boom, a lot of investors bought shares with using pseudonyms. And pseudonyms are names that does not exist. And I can recall of a major client that used about 1,000 names. And so you would see that with now the introduction of BVN, a lot of those investors are unable to claim those dividends. And those companies, the dividend of those companies has continued to grow. So each year it continues to accumulate, and there's no way the investor can claim those dividends. There was a time the Securities and Exchange Commission will try to give like a forbearance, but there's also a limit to that to avoid fraud happening and other people claiming other investors' stocks. So I believe that did not work out as expected. So that's one major reason that we continue to see it grow. Secondly, if we also look at the onboarding process currently, it's still very cumbersome. After opening a CSS account and completing the forms, completing your account opening form with your stockbroking firm, after purchasing stocks, at the point of dividend, you still need to complete what you call the e-dividend form for you to be able to receive your dividend. You have a lot of Nigerians in diaspora they may not have access to this. Thanks to COVID that some registrars were willing to accept scanned copy. Before, it used to be original copies that people, Nigerians in diaspora has to DHL. And sometimes when they look at the cost of DHLing documents compared to the dividend being expected, so they just ignore. It's not worth spending that much on it. So we believe that it's the combination of these two factors. And for this to really reduce, we need to look at that onboarding process. There needs to be a consensus between the registrars, the CSCS, as well as the Securities and Exchange Commission, and if I had the stockbrokers, so that we have that seamless way. Something interesting happened regarding the MTN offer, where the registrars accepted to use BVN as a way to validate customers. And you would see for those that bought through the primary offer platform, the BVN was used for validation, and no further paper document has been requested for customers to claim their dividend. So I think the market can borrow a leaf from this, and we can see that process and continue to use what we call a unique identifier, a BVN. At least as of now in Nigeria, we've not seen two persons having one BVN. So that should provide a bit of confidence, and all accounts are linked to BVN, and there's no third-party payment for dividend. So with registration of the BVN, if they want to enhance the due diligence, if you also want to require for your NIN, which is also now compulsory, which is linked to your mobile number. So that would, I think, solve a lot of problem and reduce the unclaimed dividend going forward.
Mm. So you've made a very, very noble contribution here, that the BVN should be viewed as a very significant unique identifier, or what we call an identity management tool, because already the Securities and Exchange Commission appointed a committee to address this issue of identity management, which I believe you're aware of, chaired by seasoned financial market leader, Mr. Ayodeji. So definitely we hope that, like you rightly said, there'll be a consensus across board to see how we can agree on a unique identifier. But in terms of the dynamics, role of shareholders and registrars, what would you like to see happen more? Because it remains a huge concern in terms of how we can create more awareness among shareholders that they need to claim or do the mandates, and for registrars to make the process much better, like you said, from the MTN experience.
Okay, I think the first thing is that there will need to be more engagement. I know there are a lot of engagement going on. You also mentioned the committee, because even the SEC is also trying to unravel these major challenges to reduce, even if you can't even, at least to avoid it from increasing, even if you can't tame it. So for new investors, so I believe that it's more of further engagement. And thankfully, technology has helped us resolve a lot of issues. So there are a lot of things we can write on. You have people's phone numbers. You have there's NIN, there's BVN that can be tied together to identify people. So I would say that the engagement should just continue, and that would really help. Because I need to also mention this, that it discourages new investors when you have to complete, when they pay dividend after the payment date, and you have to go through that long process before you can claim your dividend. And when you look at how it's structured, if we want a lot of retail investors to participate in this market, we need to provide a lot of confidence, and we need to allow technology to drive the activities in our market. So I feel that if we continue to see those engagement, and we begin to see the implementation of the use of technology to drive these processes, then we would see that there will be more interest in our market, and unclaimed dividend would also be curtailed.
Technology, very, very key in this regard. I mean, from our conversation, it's very clear what you're saying, that the BVN, the NIN should now become effective tools for identity management, and we need a very seamless process. Honestly, if you go to a cumbersome process for the whole dividend activity, it can be very discouraging. You're very right. We need more retail investors to come on board. Do you think that the automated EDMMS mechanism, which is to take effect from third quarter of 2022, that's the target by the Securities Exchange Commission after the last Capital Market Committee meeting, the first for the year, just concluded. Will that be a game changer in increasing the mandated accounts and reducing the value of unclaimed dividends in the country?
Okay, thanks. I believe that from the word the electronic, so it means that they're going to use digital to drive it. And if it's well implemented, it's going to be a major game changer. It's really going to attract a lot of investors into the market because the major concern is also, it's always the unclaimed dividend. So you want to put it into perspective. You bought a share at let's say you bought one share of a banking stock, or you bought a share, let me just put it there, at 20 naira, and it's now at 15 naira, and even the dividend of 3 naira that you are supposed to receive, you still have not received it. So you can see that there's nothing to cushion your loss. So that leads to a lot of discouragement. So I know that the regulator is working tirelessly to help to see how they want to reduce, is working tirelessly to see how they want to reduce this. And it will really be of a very good support and encouragement to potential investors and new investors in this market once this kick off.
Very well. Mr. Bo, as we begin to ramp up, looking at the capital market, looking at the fact that, like you rightly said, we need to get on board more retail investors and people to participate because you know that part of the end game is that they get value from the market as shareholders. What do you see as key drivers that will really improve a seamless process to address this whole thing around e-dividend and not claiming their dividends, and of course, improving a seamless approach for the market?
Okay, thanks. I think we've spoken extensively on the process of what can be done around the e-dividend. And now speaking specifically to the market in terms of attracting more investors, especially retail investors that will create the activity that we want. They may not be able to drive volume, but they create activity in the market.
Yeah.
The first thing is there needs to be change of orientation. So starting from the PENCOM policy that states that PFAs can only buy stocks that have declared dividend 3 out of 5 years. It means that companies that have potential for growth but are not profitable now will become moribund because there will be less liquidity in those stocks. But if you look at other clients, even stocks that will not make profit in the next 10 years, people are still buying them. They are still very liquid because investors are buying the growth and not necessarily the dividend that will be paid. Because when you invest in stocks, there are two forms of returns. You either get the dividend return or the capital appreciation, which is the increase in the share price of the company relative to your purchase price. So I believe that there needs to be that orientation with the new introduction of derivatives, where on few stocks. We also believe that while the institutional investors will take the front lead on that, and it will create a more activity in the market. We will also see how we want to drive that to also retail investors, for them to be able to at least also participate in that, because it provides an opportunity. You can take a short position depending on if you know that market will go down, you can still participate in the market and not just waiting. And if you know that market will go up, there will also be different positions that you can take in the market. So by and large, to summarize, yes, it's good that we're all looking forward to the implementation of the electronic dividend payment. And secondly, we're expecting that there would also be an a shift of orientation in terms of more financial education around just focusing, rather than just focusing on dividend paying stocks, to look out for stocks that have that potential for growth. And you can see, though they are making loss today, their loss is minimizing, and there's a potential for them to turn into the positive region.
Yeah, financial education, which leads to long-term growth and development of the capital market, and get back all those retail investors, particularly even those that we lost out in 2007, 2008, and get on the new ones, the millennials who have been watching the Nigerian capital market with a lot of skepticism. They need to come on board too. There's a lot of things around technology and crypto and around that, but they also need to find the capital market attractive, isn't it, Mr. Evo?
Yes, you are correct. You would see that a lot of the investors that we also wish to bring into the market, a lot of them already trade crypto, which is more volatile than the stock market.
Yeah.
A lot of them trade FX, which is very volatile.
Yeah.
And even the US stock market is more volatile than the Nigerian market. Nigerian market, there's a ceiling. The stock cannot lose more than 10% and cannot gain more than 10%. But in the US market, a stock can lose 100, 200% one day and can also gain that 200%. So if they are able to comfortably trade those markets, I feel that the Nigerian market is a bit conservative and they should be able to trade it. So there needs to be more activities in the market, which will create a lot of arbitrage opportunities. Using technicals for our market, for the Nigerian market, is not as easy as the foreign markets. Also, when you want to build algorithms around our own market, because of access to data, and in terms of the time to the access for the data too, it's not as effective as you would see in other climes. And information, we need to, the NSC, that's the NGX, Nigerian Exchange, is trying its best, but we need to continue to see how we push this information that is readily available. You go to Yahoo Finance, for instance, you're able to get a lot of information on companies outside other countries for free, and you're able to make decisions. But for Nigeria, it's still very limited. Very few houses, and most even for those that are doing it, the cost investors are not willing to pay for those services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayodeji, MD and CBO of Optimus by Afrinvest, for this very interesting conversation, bringing to the fore the need for a market-wide approach and a consensus on how we can improve the onboarding of our shareholders to get access to their dividend, and of course, sharing the value that will derive from the Electronic-Dividend mandate management system. And we hope that this all works out to improve our market. Thank you once again for the time.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That'll be all for this edition of the Market Review. If you have questions, comments, suggestions on achieving a market-wide approach to reduce the rising tide of unclaimed dividend in Nigeria, please send them to Ottoabasi.Abasiekong@prochanging.com. We'll be glad to respond to you accordingly. Also, follow our website, www.prochanging.com, to read our latest news, articles, stories, and reports on the capital market covering the issues around unclaimed dividend. We capture them across board, even our regulators platform in the website that follows the activities of the Securities and Exchange Commission, responsible for ensuring that we tackle that issue. Engage us on our social media platforms displayed on the screen. Don't forget that you need to be informed to make the right investment decisions. Thank you for watching, and keep discussing the financial and capital markets, because they create wealth and economic opportunities.